Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Gibson, and I'm your host tonight. I have two very special guests with us, and we're just starting out for the evening. We've had a little bit of time to talk in the back office. I have Amanda Hildreth. She's our editorial manager at Abuse Refuge Org, and that's abuserefuge.org. A lot of people misspell it and say refugee. It's REFUGE, abuserefuge.org. She's our editorial manager, and she works extensively with everything we're doing with social media, blogs, anything that represents our organization, and to kind of give voice to what we actually do. Wonderful human being. Also, we have Sara Sudol. Now, both of these ladies I had before, but we have Sara. She's a content proofreader. She's up in New Jersey. I'll let her give you a brief introduction of herself here shortly. But she makes sure whatever we're doing is spelled right, is grammatically correct, and that it's in a mode where people can understand it and articulate it. So I'm comfortable with having both of these ladies here. We're going to have a very candid conversation about a wide array of issues. Amanda, take a minute and tell our audience about you.
So, I am a mom of 3 boys, second marriage. So my husband and I now have been married about 3 years. I have a bachelor's degree in biology from Ohio University, with a minor in music. And I kind of got into writing in the last few years, and that's kind of what I've been doing since then. So that's a little
I'm
about
going to get
me.
into that more extensively throughout our interview of what you've actually been doing. It's really sometimes amazing to wake up in the morning and look at some of the stuff you do. It just is. I don't know how you can be in so many different places at once. And then I look at my schedule and I go, you know what? I'm doing it. So I'm doing the same thing. So there you go. But it's always a good thing to see you around. And Sara, tell me something. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Sara. I'm the content proofreader at ARO. Thankfully, I only have one son because I would not be able to handle more than one at this
I
point.
know.
I have a background in English literature and language and extensive editorial training. I always wanted to be a writer, and then as I got older, I discovered I liked helping other people's words more. So that's how I got into editing. And yeah, I have a bearded dragon too. Fun fact.
Both of you ladies have very eclectic but strong backgrounds. What attracted you to work for a nonprofit? Just in a nutshell, Amanda, what attracted you to work with ARO specifically?
So when I started with ARO, I was mainly looking for a way to kind of get my writing experience up, because for a lot of writing jobs, they want you to have a certain level of experience and a portfolio to show. So that's mainly what I was trying to do at that time. And then I obviously discovered like how great ARO is, and everything from there. So it not only like helped me grow my writing experience, but it was something that was like the issues were near and dear to me, because my mom experienced a lot of abuse in her marriage when I was growing up. And, I've experienced some myself, more emotional and different things like that than physical. But so it was kind of a topic that was near and dear to me, and a way to kind of get my foot in the door and get more writing experience also.
We may touch on those subjects throughout our interview, and feel free to speak as much as you like or as little as you like when it comes to some of these personable issues that may have affected you in your life. One of the most cathartic things I think on the planet to do is to be able to shout to the world, I've been through something and I've made it through. I think that's one of the most valuable experiences a person can have in their life. And what about you, Sara? Tell me, what brought you to
Honestly, somewhat along the same lines. I was looking for more editorial experience and stumbled upon ARO on actually a volunteer job listing website. And just the message behind what you do at ARO and norm therapy, what we do actually, really resonated with me. When I was younger, I used to volunteer for, my aunt worked for a nonprofit, and I used to volunteer in high school all the time. It just reminded me of how good it felt to help people. So, and it's a great community we've got going on here with everybody working at ARO, and I love it.
That's one of the things I love best about ARO. Everyone seems to just get along and have a ball. We have about 100 people, And it almost seemed like you ladies, because most of you are women. I think we only have like 5 or 6 men in the whole organization, but you have this camaraderie in this environment. It's a can-do spirit all the time. And quite frankly, I'm very proud of it. It's not my doing, although leadership-wise, I'm involved, but it's Kelly Dean, the global executive director of the organization. She really fosters a great environment, I think, where people actually have a voice and have the authority, the autonomy, and the responsibility to do what they do best. Okay, now we got the preliminaries of norm therapy and ARO and all of that. We're really didn't touch on norm therapy yet, but we will here shortly. But I want to give a quick definition. This interviewing process that we have for norm therapy is revolutionary. We're helping people in different countries all over the world. And we bring people like Amanda and Sara to the organization, and they in their own right have strong backgrounds and resumes, and they're always looking for something better to do with their lives. Why are they with us? And what I oftentimes find is people come to us because they look for an opportunity to extend themselves to help others. And it's been scientifically proven that the more you give and help someone else, you'll end up getting more out of it than the person you're actually helping. Because that gratitude, that sense of accomplishment in helping someone is what drives most societies, at least the societies who are headed towards the apex of their maturity and growth, and trying to better the lives of the people within their communities. Now we're on all the continents with the exception of Antarctica because it's just too cold, I think. But we're on all the continents, and but I'm sure if we can get some folks down there, past Argentina, and get them down to the Antarctica, but we can do that. We'll put them in some parkers and get some sled dogs and see what happens. Too cold. Anyway, blah, 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 500 more words. Now, we have a treat today. I want to talk to each one of you about your roles and responsibilities at the organization and what is it that you do during a day. Can you help me with, I know you guys are involved with blogs and social media and all of these other different areas, our different platforms, communications platforms. I'll start with you, Amanda. What is it that makes your job exciting at ARO to motivate you to get there every day?
I do a lot of different things during my day. Like, I'll help proofread posts, look at videos that have been, already made and kind of like review them, or, writing blogs, editing someone else's article. So I do a lot of different things. So I think in that way, it keeps it really interesting because it's not the same thing every day. There's some day I might be like, okay, here are my tasks for today. I have to edit some videos. I have to edit, some blurbs or what have you, or schedule something. And then, some other days I might be making a post myself. It just keeps it interesting. But I think the drive that keeps me going every day is like knowing that what I'm doing is helping people, and it's helping educate people about what we do and, the good things that we have to offer to other people.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you maintain that focus because I see you everywhere. You're in Slack, you're in Asana, you're on a website, you're in the blogs, you're here. I'm like, well, where is this woman not? That should be the question. Where are you not? Because you're everywhere and you're involved in every aspect of what we do. And I think you bring a lot of character to what we're trying to convey to the world. I talked to somebody today and we were talking about a particular child, and this child keeps involving themselves with low-minded situations. And my comment back to them was that you only look for what you think you are. You think you're low-minded, then you're going to keep finding people who are low-minded. And if you think you're high-minded, you're going to find those people. And I say that loosely now, but it was a very intense conversation. But the bottom line is, I think we present to the world a high-minded view of abuse, and not only to articulate it, but also how to combat and support it, or at least support the eradication of abuse in a person's life. And about you, Sara, I love some of the topics. I love your presentation. You did a great presentation for the company when you were talking about movies. So before we get into those topics, I want to ask you, in a day's work, what motivates you and keeps you at ARO to do the work that you do? And what is the work that you do, by the way?
So I mostly proofread, and that's a pretty general term, but it's mostly umbrella term for editing, videos, posts that are written, captions for social media. I've been doing a lot of inserting a lot of your voiceovers actually, so I hear your voice every day.
Okay, Michael
Um,
is showing up every night. There we go.
and another thing I've been doing lately is we're actually looking into talking with managers for musicians and artists. So that's something we're working on the side as well. That's been very interesting to diversify the work that I'm doing. And I guess what really
Interesting
motivates
industry.
me is the fact that abuse still, even though it's more talked about now, there are still so many topics of abuse that just aren't recognized as abuse, aren't spoken about in society. So it feels really good to be helping push that word out there, and especially using, fun content. Like we've got reels, stories, carousels on Instagram. Everything is, fresh, and it's fun.
Well, abuse is one of those topics. It's so multifaceted. It's in every single direction and every kind of possible thought. Abuse could exist or in every kind of relationship. So I think what we've done as a society, global society, is we kind of overlooked abuse for the last century, maybe, and made it just a matter of fact thing that occurs in society without giving it any real weight on how to combat it or how to articulate it, other than things like drug abuse or alcohol abuse or sexual abuse or child sexual abuse. Those kinds of issues get a lot of attention. But when it comes to financial abuse or PTSD or human trafficking or political abuse or about many of the other 21 or 24 to 24 different abuses that we champion, it's really interesting how abuse becomes so pervasive, so ubiquitous in our society. It's everywhere and it's in everything. So you both are moms, and having children is a feat in itself. Protecting yourself as moms is, of course, my mom used to say she first had to take care of herself, and when she was okay, she knew she could take care of us because we had six. It was six kids and my mom, so it was really tough. However, when she said that, as a kid, you don't really think, what does that mean, until you get older and you realize, wow, my mom really went through something to have been with six kids. Now you have three kids, right? You guys see me?
Oh, there we go. That's better.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I live for now in the Middle East. Some places in the Middle East they have excellent, and they do have excellent internet here, but sometimes it just goes away. And I think it's a wave. It comes in waves. Do apologize. Can you ladies understand me okay now?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. But as a mom, I will go back to you, Amanda. As a mom, how big of a struggle it is to be you every day?
It's a struggle. I'm not gonna lie. Because I mean, I work from home and I have the kids at the same time. Now, my husband obviously helps. He works Thursday through Saturday, so most of the week, he's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, he's here. So like he'll help, during the day with the kids and everything, but But I just get used to them being in the same area as where I'm working. And that's, that happens like every day. So it's just, it is a lot, but I mean, if you have the right mindset, I think it's easier to work through than you think it might be. Because I feel like my 5-year-old definitely has an understanding of like, I'm working, I can't do everything right now, that sort of thing. And then, my 1-year-old, he just eats and naps and everything else. So, I mean, it's kind of easier with him. But yeah, I mean, it is difficult, but it's not undoable.
Wow. I mean, that's really got to be something. I do have some experience in that. Maybe I'll share it in a minute. But Sara, tell me, what is your day like with your son?
He's almost 2.5, so he's a lot.
Wow.
He is a lot better though. I feel like he was harder to work around remotely when he was 1 actually, and he plays a little more independently now, which is nice. But I feel like at least for me, in my experience, it is somewhat easy to lose yourself in motherhood. I actually personally experienced that, and just in the past maybe year, less than a year, started kind of putting myself first at some points, just so that I'd be in a better place mentally in order to really be able to mother him the way that I want to, the way that I need to, the way that I should. So
it's a very smart
difficult.
move.
It does take a village too. I have a wonderful mother who helps me out when I need help, and it really does take a village.
It does. And I'm sure if Amanda didn't have her husband and if you didn't have your mom, it would be a hell of an experience. I tell you, my ex-wife and I broke up. When we broke up, one day she was there, the next day she was gone, and I had 3 kids by myself. And I mean, 2 girls and a boy. And so I had to actually learn how to do my children's hair, the braids and the ponytails. And that was me taking tutorials online and doing all of that. It was really something, but it was an experience I would never trade for anything else. Truly on a tremendous amount of work to raise a family. It is not easy whatsoever. Okay, so you both are mothers, and as mothers, you see abuse in the world, and I bet you just clutch your kids like, oh, hold on a second, I'm going to protect mine. How do you feel when you come across a set of circumstances when you're seeing someone abused, or maybe you're being abused? How does that make you more of a champion to your kids, Amanda?
I feel like for my kids, my job is to make them aware, like to talk about those sorts of things, like sexual abuse or other things that they could potentially go through, and make them aware and help them be equipped to deal with those things if they do happen. So more of, instead of like trying to shelter them, giving them the tools to handle a situation if it were to arise.
I think that's a very novel approach. I think most people don't understand how to do what you just said. They don't understand that it's a good idea to give them the authority to help make the decisions, even though you're making it for them, but guide them in a way where, because I always tell people it's okay if kids make decisions like, how is little Jeff down the street, or what color bike do you want? But it's the parents' responsibility to make the ultimate decision, and also to enforce those decisions. And then when they get older, of course, their decision-making process will mean a lot more. But you got to get them in practice now, especially when it comes to abuse, so they'll know what to avoid. And you, Sara, if you see abuse anywhere or in any kind of circumstance, personal or otherwise, how do you purport to handle that abuse circumstance?
I just want to say quickly on the side too, Amanda, that is the type of mother I aspire to be when my son is older. So all strength and kudos to you. I feel like that's really, especially as raising sons, like making them more aware of what is abuse, because sometimes, society just glosses over, oh, that's just what boys do, or, oh, that's just how marriage is. But yeah, so I actually encountered something recently when I was out grocery shopping with my son a few weeks ago. There was a couple having a really heated argument in the parking lot when I was packing up the car. And when I'm with my son, I try not to get involved in certain things because it's also his safety I have to keep in mind. But I did stay there. I put him in the car. I locked the car, and I was just kind of standing with my trunk open, pretending I was still packing up the car, just like keeping an ear out and listening. Because I figured, if things sound like they're getting bad, I can, I have my phone. I can call, for help. They basically kissed and made up outside, but it's when you see something happening around you, I feel like for the most part a lot of us unfortunately just ignore it. We just keep walking by, or we just turn a blind eye. And it's again that mentality of like, oh, it's their business, it's not my business. But really I feel like it should be, not that it should be everybody's business per se, but it should be our
concern.
Our concern, yes. Because, if you do see something bad happening, like if you're just going to stand there, be a bystander, who's going to help you if something's happening to you?
Right.
That's
like you almost have a duty to do something.
Respond. Yeah.
Exactly. It's setting a good example for our children too. You don't necessarily have to put yourself in harm's way, but just be aware of what's going on around you. Be aware of what's going on with everybody around you.
Because even if your son, because he's so young, even if he sees and hears this, it's still going to affect him as well if something gets out of hand. So it's up to you to, I guess, be more self-aware and situationally aware in those circumstances. And I don't think our society do a great job in teaching us that. Do you? No, not at all. I think that our parents try their best. You ever hear a parent say, well, I did my best. I did my best. And that may, in terms of what they thought they were doing in the times that they did it, that may have been enough for them. But life is a lot more complex these days than it used to be. As a matter of fact, that happens with every generation, that life becomes a little bit more complex than what it was before. And some parents think they did a great job. And by today's standard, they didn't. They didn't talk enough. They didn't share enough. They didn't warn you enough. They didn't, I don't believe in parents being the friend of a child at all. I believe parents should be parents, but I also believe that they should be friendly to their child. I think that's more important, to be friendly than a friend. Because once you're a friend, especially at the young ages, I'd say when they're 17, 18, and they're starting to go off to college and finish high school, it's good to have a more of a friendship kind of, because you're not really chastising them anymore and sharing your philosophy every day. You're more like participating in their lives and making sure that those lives get better and better. But when they're in the impressionable ages, like your children are now, when they're in those ages, they don't need a friend and a parent. They need a parent. They need someone because children want to be led. Matter of fact, they need to be led, and they need to be led down a path where you, with the experience, can say, as I think you just said, Sara, I think you put it the best way when you told Amanda that you aspire to be that kind of mom. You need to lead them down that path. As you grow, they grow. Because I didn't know anything about kids when I first had a kid. I didn't know anything about them, other than they're little and they cry a lot. Even though my kids never really cried a lot, but that's all I really knew. But I had a good understanding because once I was a kid too. But at the end of the day, we have to put ourselves on a path that makes sense to the child, but also to us first. The path has to make sense to us. I think that's why a lot of kids, a lot of at-risk youth are out there today, because parents think that they've done their best and they've moved on. And so long as I've done my best, that's all I need to do. And that's never in the history of the world been good enough. Not only do you have to do your best, you have to go back several times throughout the life of that child and reinvent yourself. And for each event that they may or may not be participating in. So we'll go on in that in a minute. But tell me something. When you're writing for ARO, Amanda, what do you keep in mind to make sure that the audience out there can read and become a part of? What's your major focus?
My major focus is trying to bring awareness to like abuses that people don't always think of. Like for example, like the article that I just wrote last month was on digital abuse. I mean, how many people really think about that? You know, not only like on social media, but like through text, through like using, you know, almost everyone now has like smart devices in their homes, like using smart devices to monitor people and things like that. That's not something that you would typically think of. But in the age that we live in, that's a problem now. And it
Truly
can
is.
be a problem now. So, I mean, that's kind of what I try to focus on is like to bring light to things. And not that I don't write about, you know, abuses that are more common that more people think of more often, but I try to bring light to, you know, abuses that people just don't think of, or like try to shed new light on different ways that people are abusing people now and like exploiting people now, that, you know, society is a little bit different.
Truly is. Okay, so now I want to go to another topic. A great answer. I want to go to another topic. I want to ask Sara a question. You have a very interesting background, but self-care is important to you. And I like that. So you can talk work all day long. You and Amanda both, I'm sure. But self-care, like what do you do to take care of you? What do you suggest our audience do in order to take care of themselves?
So it took me a long time to learn how to take care of myself after becoming a mother. Because before I was a mother, you know, you have so much time on your hands. Before you become a mother, you don't even realize how much time you have. So before that would be, you know, reading a book at night, or taking an hour and giving myself a, you know, a home manicure and pedicure and just relaxing with a glass of wine. But now after motherhood, sometimes really is just sitting on the couch or sitting back on my bed and just taking like 5-10 minutes of pure silence and just breathing. I don't meditate because I'm not the type of person who can shut my brain off. I haven't figured out that skill yet in life, but just sitting there for like 5-10 minutes in absolute silence really helps me just kind of unwind from the day, especially if it's been tantrum filled day. And then also eating ice cream.
Nope. Let's get the treat in there. We have to have
Very
a treat
simple.
for good reward. You know, I try to explain, even in our sessions with victims and survivors, I always try to prioritize first you, the person. If you don't prioritize you, no one else will. And that's what people don't get, unless they're your mom who's a doting mom and just come here, sweetheart, I got your back. But she can't even be there 24 hours 7. So you got to be real careful about taking care of you first. And that's good that you do those. But the best way to meditate, believe it or not, is through breathing. Do you practice breathing exercises?
I have, yeah.
If you
I use an
breathe in-
app because I can't do it on my own. I need structure.
I'm just in all different directions. What about you, Amanda? Do you meditate?
No. I'm the same way. I don't think I could quiet my mind long enough. I don't think I could. For me, self-care is like naps. Like naps, 100%. I believe a nap can fix anything.
Well,
Yeah.
one of the things I'm finding over the years, having studied martial arts for many years and theta for many years and quite a few other things, one of the things I try to do is make sure my fingers and toes can align every time I touch them. And I make sure that my nose is of course, always straight. And I know people don't really pay attention to the nose or the eyes. And I do exercises. I mean, a very simple exercise to do with your eyes can keep your vision up. And people don't do it because we take for granted that we can see, so we don't think we need to exercise our eyes. But if you just take your finger and put it out in front of you, just look at your finger and bring it into your nose, and then take your arm and go around in a couple circles and watch your finger the whole way. And you do that a few times, and then you bring that back to your nose. That gives your eyes enough exercise in one day to correct bad vision. Just that simple exercise, because you're taking it to the spherical point of the radius, not the radius of the eye, but the circumference that you would use of the eye and its movement. You're taking it that way, and it excites muscles in your eyes. I do those things in order to meditate because I have to clear my mind. One of the things I think women are different than men at, not that women can't meditate, because quite a few can, is quieting their mind. You ladies worry about everything. My experience tells me that women, I'm not one of those guys that know everything about women. I'm not him, but I do know what I know about the women I know. and so, but I think you always got something on your mind. You always got to do something. You always got worried about something. You always got a topic to cover. You always got something to do. And, you know, a guy is just sitting there, you know, one hand in his belt, watching the TV and maybe a beer, and they're zoned out. And then that's when the woman comes, sits right next to him, and I want to have a conversation. Like, help. How do we do that? But why do you think that is, that women actually are so busy in their mind and spirit all the time? Why do you think that's the case? Because, and I'm going to start with you, Amanda, but I definitely want to hear your opinion on this, Sara, because I'm looking at your writing here and your short bio, and I want to cover that. But I want to hear what Amanda has to say about it first. Tell me, why do you think that is?
I think especially for women that have kids, a lot of times, like mom is the primary caregiver. So there's constantly something going through your mind to do with the kids or the household, or, you know, like I'll just be sitting there at work and I'll be like, oh man, I got to call the doctor and make a doctor's appointment. Oh man, I got to make a doctor's appointment for me. Oh, he has a dentist appointment next week or whatever. I got to tell my boss that I have to be out for an hour that day. Like it's just constantly like over and over and over again, because there's always something that needs done, either for the kids, for the house, like it's never ending. So I think a lot of it is that, like being the primary caregiver, you have that constant like dialogue of, oh, I have to do this, oh, I have to do this, oh, I have to do this. And I think that's a lot of it.
Wow. Well, to me, just my logic says I need a break from just what you just said. I need to just take a break, clear my brain, and then come back to it later. I'm literally that way. When I'm done, when you get a chance to talk to Kelly, we're working on a project. We're right in the middle. I'm just had a long day with my own day. Now I'm having a long day with ARO, and then another long day with norm therapy at the same time. I just stop. I say, I'm done. And it's over until tomorrow or the next time. And I don't know how women do it. I watch you ladies and I just lose my mind. What about you, Sara? Tell me, how do you quiet yourself in your mind and your spirit?
You know, I think what Amanda said was very spot on, especially in my case. You know, I mean, every person is different. Every relationship is different. But for me personally, you know, my relationship with my son's father didn't work out because I was the one responsible for absolutely every single thing. I had 2 children in that household, which didn't work for me to be a healthy, happy person myself. You know, bills, doctors, you know, thinking about, oh, you know, my son's going to go to pre-K next year. We got to start thinking about that. It's just never ending, the thoughts that pop into your head. And there are some women I know that can shut off after their kids go to sleep. They shut off, they clear their mind, and I am incredibly jealous of their ability to do so. I never really thought I was a worrier until I became a mother, because then I just start worrying about everything. Like, we have a doctor's appointment when he turned 2. Our next appointment is in 6 months for his 2.5 checkup. And oh, the doctor mentioned this. I got to make sure he's drinking enough milk. Like every single day, it's just, you know, it's not a huge problem, but it's just one other tiny little thing that I add to my list of a million tiny little things that I keep in my head and keep going through. I have notes on my phone. I have a physical planner. I use, you know, we use Asana with work here. I use that for my personal stuff too, because I loved it so much. It's just, it's never ending.
Wow.
It's hard to shut that off at the end of the day.
That sounds exhausting, ladies. I mean, it's very sincere. It's exhausting to hear you ladies say all this, because I'm like, I ate, I'm gonna relax. Maybe I'll burp. I'm done. You know, that's the end of my day. I'm done. Excuse the expression, but that's true. But you ladies go, well, then I got to make this list for tomorrow and do this for later and get this done and get that out, prepare the kids for very responsible. That's one thing. One of the reasons why I love working with women in the workplace, I think it's because of that trait right there. Most men go, oh yeah, Bob, Mike, I got it. No problem. Tomorrow it'll be done. Sweep it under the rug. Women do it differently. In my experience and all my years in business, women just do it different. You guys say, Michael, we have a problem. And I go, oh, what's the problem? You go, here it is, and this is how I think we can fix it. That's what I like hearing more than anything else. When a woman says that in the workplace, oh my God, you want to keep this lady forever. Having a problem is one thing, but having a problem with a potential solution is surely another. And that's, I think, how, if I had to give credit to women on how their brains work in that regard, I think you guys got men beat hands down. You kind of take the ego out of the conversation and get down to what's important. I think you said it best, Sara, a minute ago when you said it was like raising two children instead of one. Because some guys just are not serious about the responsibility of a household, especially at a young age. They're just not, or a younger age, I should say. They're just not as serious. And then some young guys, like when I was in the military, these young guys, they were all about family. They were all about taking care of their wives and kids and all about being there when they could be. I mean, it was really an impressive thing to watch military people take care of their families. They weren't always great, but for the most part, they wanted to be there and they wanted to spend a lot of time with their families. And we would go on different operations sometimes where we were gone 6 and 8 months at a time. And, then they, constantly, back then they wrote letters. We didn't do the smartphone things and all that when I was in the military, but definitely that was a part of how we operated. And family was everything, As a matter of fact, I used to volunteer to go out on different operations for some of the guys who were married, because I wasn't married during that time or had any kids. So I would volunteer to go out on operations because I knew they had just been out 6 months doing crazy stuff and probably never coming home had they did one more crazy thing. And so I say, I'll go on this next one because you're a married guy. You need to spend some time with your family. So having a man in the household with you is of paramount importance. I think it is. I think it's impossible for a woman to raise a man. That's not to say they don't do a great job. That's not it. But for a male, because you both have sons, to be well-rounded and have the perspective of both a parent, because that support that a woman creates, the woman creates the support in the family. She is the creator of it. The man has to support her support in order for it to make sense to the child. Now, a strong woman by herself can get the job done. My mom's living, or she's now deceased, but she was living proof of that. But can you see me now?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Listen, it's coming and going in waves. I think the next time I go online, I'm going to actually do the live stream from my phone.
Whoa, we lost him.
Just us. Do you want to give him a minute or two to reconnect and then we can continue the discussion?
Yep.
Do anything exciting for the 4th?
Nope, I did nothing.
Same.
Well, because we were thinking, I don't have my 5-year-old. He's with his dad this weekend, but we were thinking about going to watch fireworks. But I'm like, it's at like 10 o'clock. The baby goes to sleep at like 8. I
Yeah.
was like, I don't want to wake the baby up just to go see fireworks.
No, I feel like I can't even stay up for the fireworks anymore.
That's the other thing. I'm like, I don't even know how he's going to react. He might just scream the whole time.
Yeah. And then you get to not have fun and deal with the screaming.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know about that. We'll just stay home.
My son fell asleep last night to the fireworks. He's listening. He's like, oh.
Yeah, they were going off like crazy last night. And I was like, I don't know if he's going to be able to sleep.
All right,
Welcome back.
ladies. Thank you. Well, I'm assuming that was about 4th of July. How did it go?
Yes.
For you ladies? How did it go?
It was great. I did nothing.
Yeah, me too.
Really?
Did nothing.
Neither did I. But we're about a nothing crowd when it comes to the 4th of July. I mean, the spirit of 4th of July is great, but I mean, I live for the 4th of July for the fireworks. And that's it.
Yeah.
I'm in the barbecues, maybe that kind of thing. Yeah, I think from now on, I'm just going to use the Wi-Fi of my phone and that signal instead of my home, because it goes out in the evening sometimes, and this is ridiculous. It's I'm going to be back in the States probably in about the next few weeks. So I'm kind of winding everything down over here, but I'll be back and forth here throughout the year. At the end of the day, I think enjoying holidays, and when you get the chance to do it with your children and explain to them the meaning of the holiday and all of that. What did you guys, is your son old enough, Sara, to understand? Because I too, my kids were talking, so.
He doesn't stop talking. He's got a great vocabulary, which I'm very proud of. And he loves to read. So I'm like, I'm doing something right.
Absolutely.
But if, he understands a lot of things, but I think, Independence Day, Memorial Day, Labor Day, even like 9/11 Remembrance Day, I don't think he's old enough yet to really understand the importance behind those days. He knows there are special days or different days because we're not working, we're, doing something, but I think maybe within a year or so, he'd understand more.
Okay, I need to ask you a question. Now, I know you're in Ohio, Amanda, and you're in New Jersey, forgive me.
New Jersey, yeah.
Okay. Now, how cold is it in the wintertime there? I remember Jersey and Ohio.
Jersey?
It depends.
Yeah.
Like, is it a bad winter? Is it, I mean, in the past few years, it's been mild. So, I mean, 20s. But
that's mild.
Yeah. I mean, probably like.
That's warm in New York and New Jersey.
Yeah, the last like cold winter I can really remember was like negative wind chills and negative degrees, but that was like probably 10 years ago.
Wow. Okay. The reason I asked that is if you had somewhere warmer to go in life all year round to live, where would that be, Sara? Start with you. Where would that be?
Oh my God. Not Florida. It gets too muggy.
Oh, yes.
Well, that's a great question. I don't know. Maybe South Carolina would be a nice little mix.
Beautiful place. Seasons. My ancestral family is from South Carolina, believe it or not. Absolutely. Columbia, South Carolina, for that matter. Okay, so South Carolina. Okay, anywhere in the world warmer, where would you live?
I don't know. Amanda,
think about it for a minute. Amanda?
Bahamas.
But Bahamas is a great place. It really is. Nice people there too. Very clean. I mean, on Grand Bahama or where? Which island?
I don't know. I'm trying to remember what island I've been to. I can't remember where it was because it was a little while ago. I visited when I had just graduated high school. So I mean, that was a long time ago.
I'm thinking where I'm going to retire to one of these days, and I think it has to be somewhere like Turks and Caicos or Greece or somewhere where you just have a.
Greece would probably be cool.
Oh yeah, I lived in I think Athens. They call it Athena there, but I lived in Athens for about a year. An amazing, in a place called Hartrikopi, and talk about blue waters everywhere, and you go out. We used to go out to this island called Salonico. Oh my God, a paradise in the middle of paradise. I mean, it was a paradise in the middle of paradise. Really wonderful place to be. Morocco is another good place. Marrakesh and Casablanca, these are good places. But to be warm, Egypt is great. We'd love Egypt. Tunisia, North Africa is. I think anywhere in North Africa where there's no fighting, there's a good place to you just settle down and have a ball. Southern Europe, if you really want to live and just relax, Southern Italy, Southern Europe is the place to be, I think. And I love travel. I mean, travel is like in my blood. Women, I don't know why you ladies think in terms of vacation. But see, one thing I love about cats and dogs and children is we invite them to our company. And all our meetings, you'll see cats walking by, kids and dogs, and and it seems to bring a lot of happiness and joy to the people, and it doesn't take away from anything. And it's always good to have a calm pet. Now we've had some unruly pets that just jumped all over the place over the years, but normally everybody's just chilled, watching their keeper, their handler, their love of their lives, having a good time. So we welcome that at our organization.
I was like, he's coming in whether you like it or not.
Exactly. So why fret? I don't even understand why people fret when it comes to something like that. Just let them enjoy themselves. Why not? What is it going to hurt? I want to talk a little bit about norm therapy, if I may, and I know I kind of cut us off a little bit. And then, we only have like 14 minutes left. I enjoy talking to you ladies. We had some pretty intense conversations, both of us individually. Now, as a panel, you asked me some questions. What are some things you think I should be sharing with the audience?
Have you talked yet about why norm therapy and the ideas behind norm therapy are so important to you?
Yes. As a child, I was beaten like I was, 25 years old. I'm talking about not the belt. I'm talking about fist and you name it. From as long as I can remember. And then I watched my mom get beat the same way and worse. She'd lose teeth, broken ribs, broken arms, be in the hospital for weeks and months at a time, internal bleeding, the whole 9 yards. Nothing you can do about it as a kid other than take it. And my mom was one of those really strong women. You see, back then, everybody beat their wives. So you thought. And I remember once as a 4 or 5 year old, I was, as my bigger sister, she called the police, and the police came by. And when they got into the house was pitch dark, and they had their flashlights. And you could see the policeman's light flash over towards the dresser where my mom was being flipped. And she hit her face on the dresser. And the cop, instead of getting involved, he said these exact words. Hey, mister, what did she do wrong for you to be beating her like that? That was the answer. That was our help. So my mom told me, and my brothers and sisters as a kid, she just basically said, be tough. You can handle this, and she wouldn't even let us ever speak a bad word to my father about him, to him, ever. It just was not going to happen. It was just how they grew up. Then I later found out that my father was hung in a closet by rope and beaten butt naked with a wet belt. And that's how he learned discipline. So these kind of cyclical pains and egregious activity, as well as the abuse, just kind of went generation to generation. So I could have been a coward, like most people who are beaten down as a child become cowards. It's one of the most major effects of a abused child is that they are afraid of everything. Or I did like my mother said, was just take it. You're going to get an ass whooping. Just take it until you don't have to. And that was my attitude in life. So later, when I had a chance to get out of the house, of course, they divorced when I was 11. We moved from literally a 16-room home. My father was kind of wealthy back then, to the projects and to whomever my mom could get to take all 6 of us in. So over the years, I gave a lot of thought to abuse, and I saw it on every continent. I've been to over 80 countries, and I've studied and understood abuse all around the world. And I decided that I would become a champion of abuse. I mean, if you look at, when I joined the military at 17, and I was in special forces at 18 because you had to be 18 to get in. I became a Green Beret at 18 years old. And if you our motto in special forces is de oppresso liber. We just say DOL for short. De oppresso liber is Latin for free the oppressed. And that's what I've lived my whole life, is the freedom and help of other people and alleviate and eradicate their oppression. I've just kind of been fighting for that in every job. I've never had a job, but every company I've owned and everything that I've done. I've only ever worked for the U.S. government and myself. I've never worked for any corporation in the world, just for the U.S. government and myself. I don't even know what it's like to do a job interview other than conduct it. I have no idea. But that's why abuse. That is absolutely why abuse. And abuse is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. So I got a job out for it. But courage is not being gallant. It's not being strong and all of that people think courage is. Courage is just the control of fear. That's all it is. And that's what my mother taught us early on in life, the control of fear. Not be afraid, just move forward no matter what. Anyway, I can go on with that. I want to ask you about something now. We got 10 minutes left, and this is a very dear subject to some of the members at ARO. Postpartum depression. How big of an issue was that for you, Amanda?
Thankfully not for me, but I do understand it on the level of like a lot of women in general kind of like lose their identity when they become mothers, and like you kind of don't know who you are anymore. And I think that's normal to a degree. Because you have experienced this life altering situation, and you're like, well, I'm definitely not the person that I was before this, and I'm definitely so I don't know who I really am now. And I think that's a lot of it is like loss of identity and like trying to figure out like who you are again after having kids.
And you, Sara? Thank you, Amanda.
Yes, it was a much bigger issue for me than I initially realized. I didn't know that that's what I was going through for the longest time because nobody ever told me, possible things to look out for. I mean, I love my gyno. My OBGYN is amazing. I love her. She was amazing through the whole birth process and everything. But, that was never a conversation we had together. It was never a conversation I had with the L&D nurses. My mother never went through it, so it was never really something I spoke to her about. And for me, it manifested in unexplained anger or outbursts of anger, hard to control anger. It took me a lot of Googling, actually, to figure out, oh, wow, this is part of what postpartum depression is. And, after that, I talked to more people, mostly to my mother, actually. About what I was going through, and just, talking out my feelings helped me a lot. And I had another friend who actually went to therapy to help her with her issues because she was bad with both of her kids. And it's just, I feel like it's not something that people actually talk about or warn you about when you're pregnant. And I feel like that's something, we should try to change as a society.
Well, one of my patients went through experiencing their parent going through postpartum, and it affected them their entire lives. Truly, it did. You have to really be cognizant about how you treat your child when you're going through postpartum. Did you have a chance to study yourself during this time to ensure that you were, of course, treating your son the way he needed to be treated?
Yeah. What made me really seek out help in talking to my mother and talking to other people was my son was maybe between 6 and 8 months old. I don't exactly remember when, but he was having just an off day, like tantrums, didn't want to do anything. It was just a rough day. And it was the first time I ever actually like yelled at him. It wasn't raising my voice, it was yelling. And that's when I realized, holy shit, like something's going on with me. Like this isn't me. I've never really been a person who's had anger issues before. I always was able to keep my cool in situations whenever I was angry. It was just like kind of stone faced, like, whatever.
Just took
So
it.
that's that. Yeah, exactly. That's what really opened my eyes, was maybe something else is going on with me. Maybe I should talk to somebody and just try to at least talk it out and figure out what's going on. And because I didn't like myself at that moment after I yelled at him, I'm like, he's a baby still. Like, why am I yelling at him? He's not going to understand. It's just going to scare him or upset him further. And it did. It upset him further. So just the rest of the day was even worse after that. But, I don't, not that there's anything wrong with yelling. I think in certain instances you have to yell, especially when, your child's life is about to be in danger. And, I feel like if you raise your voice rarely, the instances when you do make it more impactful. So yeah, that was always really eye-opening for me, and made me realize I need to, help myself and work on myself in order to mother.
What was the remedy? Tell me, what was the remedy that you deployed in your life to get a grip on postpartum depression, as well as the type of relationship that you were having with your son and yourself, and probably your ex as well? Tell me, what did you do to make that situation better?
So for me, before I had never really gone to therapy before, and I within the past year started, and it's helped me a lot, just being able to talk to somebody, and especially somebody who's neutral, who doesn't know you, who isn't related to you, who isn't going to be, a friend, who is going to listen to you and, might not call you out on things, might just have your back the whole time and let you vent during a venting session. Like I feel like it's important to have somebody, whether it's a therapist or just like an online support group or something, I feel like that's really important.
You need to vent.
Yeah. Talking things out, because we keep so much inside, men, women, parents, not parents. Like we just have this tendency to not talk about things. And I think that's really detrimental to not only our mental health, but to the mental health of others around us as well. And just acknowledging that I had an issue that I needed help with, that I couldn't help myself with. I feel like that was a big stepping stone for me in getting better, getting to a better mental place. And I mean, my ex and I, so far, we're co-parenting pretty well, but I have one thing I do to make sure I don't, because I have some anger issues with that whole situation, some, just sadness and stuff. And I try not to bring that into any conversations that revolve around our son, because I don't think that's the place for those feelings. We have to take care of our son first. He's our main priority. So if, we're texting and there's something that just triggers me, no matter what the emotion is, if it triggers me, I put my phone down and I just step away for at least 10 minutes and I just do something else. I either go back to work, go back to playing with our son, whatever I'm doing. And I feel like that slight disassociation, I guess you could say, is kind of what I'm doing. I feel like that really helps me to just better focus on what the priority is and not let my emotions dictate, my responses or how I do things.
When we're on the operation back in the military, we say, let's break contact. Sometimes you got to break contact and let it go. I can talk to you ladies forever, but I'd like to propose that in the future, we do another live stream, us three. But here's a specific topic I would like for you ladies to work on in the meantime, until we have our next discussion, is how people treat one another on the internet, from bullying, but especially one of the topics that are interesting to me is there are groups of people around the world. They get on the internet and all they do is they try to get women, or women trying to get men, and they go to different countries and they do all kinds of things looking to hook up online, and it's setting a bad precedent for the world. I think it's something that if you're going to be working with abuse, and this organization is one of the topics that I'm going to champion, is how to get people not to do that and to swipe left or swipe right on these different dating apps, and not to degrade themselves into that kind of lifestyle, even though some people do it and they think it's okay, but in the long run, it isn't. Anytime you give up your body or you give up your mind to anyone for any reason other than something important, then it's going to not be good for you at some level. I talked about it the other day. I said, free your mind, your ass will follow. And that's the whole idea of what's going on in the world. And so if we can talk about that and think about that, um, yeah, you're right. I'm listening. Oh, you're right, Louisa. But I'm just thinking at the same time that I want to cover that issue. I want to talk about it. And I think you ladies can do a little homework on that. We'll come up with some ideas and some prevention techniques, and also find some groups who are actually good groups of going out, hanging out in the world and going to different states and different countries, looking for people, but not just to have sex, but enjoy their communities, learn about them. There are groups out there like that too, but it's becoming more and more prevalent, the other. So if you can help me with that, that'll be a great topic to have in the future. And maybe I'll have a couple more norm therapists on with us to get a different take as well on that. I think that could be very beneficial. But now I'm going to do something that I have to always do. And I want to just, of course, thank you both for being here today. I mean, I really enjoyed you both. And you always bring good insight. When I lost the computer, it just killed all my notes. And it just killed all my notes. And I'm waiting for them to reload here so I can have that conversation. Okay. If you've enjoyed and got something out of today's live podcast, share this live session with a friend who could benefit from our messages. Please go to GoARO, GoARO.org, and to normtherapy.com. That's normtherapy.com to explore opportunities and seek help for yourself or someone needing our services. If you're interested in applying to participate in our live sessions as a guest, like Amanda and Sara are today, please contact us, contact@normtherapy.com. And somebody will get back with you. If you want to get sessions for yourself for norm therapists to see you and talk to you about a potential victim or survivor situation, please send your request to the same email address, contact@normtherapy.com. Thank you for joining us. And we can't wait to see you again on Tuesday, July 9th at 2 p.m., where I will be interviewing Nyasha Guillaume. She's a human resources recruiter at Abuse Refuge Org. I want to thank you, ladies, for being here tonight. I've always enjoyed your personalities. You both have very dynamic personalities. You're involved in so much. And I'm looking forward to having you on future interviews. I'm going to start bringing in outside guests that we're going to be on a panel. So you're going to help me double team against them in the future. So be ready for that. And just to get as much out of people as we possibly can so we can share with the public. You both are very dynamic and wonderful individuals. You have a very difficult job raising kids, especially at those ages. But at the same time, being a workhorse like you both are and doing all that and balancing it has to be something that really means something to you in order for you to accomplish so much with so little sometimes. And thank you for asking me that question. I really appreciate it, Sara. Matter of fact, that's my ex-wife's name, Sara. So every time I sometimes forget her name. I have to look down and look at your name because I kind of X'd her out of my head, not because I hate her or anything like that, but because out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. So I have to look down and what is that name? So forgive me. But thank you very much for being here. Anyone has any last things they'd like to say?
We were just talking about how people don't really realize that anger can be depression. I didn't realize that my anger was depression until I started getting on medication, and ever since then, it just, the medication stops my racing thoughts and it stops my anger, like quick to anger, and I actually have a minute to breathe. And I think that's just something that a lot of people don't talk about, because like depression to most people is just sadness, and it's not sadness. It's not only sadness. It can be an array of emotion, and anger can be one of them.
That frustration of having so many things occur at once explodes, and it, of course, becomes anger as a result. Most people don't get that. They don't get that they can actually do something about it. And it isn't always medication, but oftentimes it requires some medication to quiet those other noises. I think that is, I think if anger by itself was just the issue, people could probably manage that. But it's so much more. You're absolutely correct. Listen, ladies, we could do this all night, and we're still having people join us right now. We're ending this thing. Normally, when I go on one of these, because I'm invited to a lot of these, I go on for hours, 3, 4, 5 hours with people talking in the middle of the night here. So I sleep part of my day, but I go on and talk and talk and talk until sometimes I lose my voice, and people will join. You'll have 150 people one moment, you have 1,000 the next moment, you have 2 the next moment, but you just keep going and going. So maybe in the future, if it's okay with you, we'll go on for an hour, but if you want to keep going, we'll stay on for a couple hours. And then, like this conversation you just brought up about anger and depression and medication, that's a topic that I would definitely want to cover, but I don't want to share your information with the world, unless you bring it up. Then we can talk about it, because if you've done those proactive things to manage that anger and to manage that depression, and whether it's manic depressive or not, it's something that everybody wants to hear about and know about, so they can kind of look for a remedy in themselves, because abuse care is not mental health care. Abuse care is exactly what it is. It's abuse care. If you're in need of mental health care as an abuse care aficionado or abuse care advocate, if you're in need of mental health care, then we oftentimes, if not always, refer you to good mental health care, because we won't be doing that anytime soon. Even though we are working on our business development, towards we will be adding mental health care to our platform over the next couple of years, where we'll have everyone will not only be licensed as norm therapists, but they'll also be licensed as mental health care specialists to some degree in different states or countries around the world, or different world body health organizations. So that's something we're working on actively all the time, and that'll be a reality soon. So every one of our therapists will be licensed as well for mental health care and abuse care. So it's going to be interesting how that plays out. Listen, ladies, I got 10 more topics right off the tip of my tongue now that we're at the end of our hour. I apologize for going over. We're 6 minutes over. That's not too bad. Thank you for your question, Sara, about my passion about abuse. My mother, she died in my arms in 1994. It's a whole nother story. She cancer ate her up, and there's a whole lifelong mission that goes with that. And I just made a commitment to myself and to her and to anyone I'll come in contact to, that if I can do anything to change your life by helping you, then hey, let's do it. And now the platform is called Norm Therapy, and it's helping people around the world. So thank you very much, ladies. Y'all have a good one. I'm going to close us out finally. I hope. I'm going to close us out.
Mm.